Unity of discourse and action. In fact, it is a feature that should be present in every environment where collective action is taken. More precisely, in every environment with common goals. Especially armies should be more sensitive in this regard. All kinds of crack and differences of opinion that lead to a confrontation creates large breaches through which the enemy can penetrate. The orders of the commanders are binding and final. After the commander has given the order, opening it up to discussion and not implementing it can lead to major problems for the army. But what happens when there are opposing opinions in an army and the commander's orders are not followed? Hello, the Pioneer viewer. How are you doing? I hope you're healthy and well. In our previous reports, we mentioned that the Russian armed forces put Teplinsky in charge of the Kherson defense and pointed out that Teplinsky's liquidation process had begun. Because even though Teplinsky was a good commander, he was not on good terms with Vladimir Putin, the president of the Russian Federation. It seems that Putin has started the process of liquidating Teplinsky. So what are the new developments about Teplinsky? What the problems are the Russian troops on the Kherson front line struggling with? Let's take a look at the developments together. As the Pioneer team, we continue to bring the Russia-Ukraine war to your screens. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so as not to miss our daily map reports and reports on the agenda. I also read all the comments you make in our videos. Please continue to express your opinion about our content in the comments. Let's start if you are ready. The Pioneer reports. We've mentioned it before. We've mentioned it in our previous reports. Vladimir Putin, the president of the Russian Federation, has problems with General Teplinsky. There is a lot of tension between the two. However, when the losses of the Russian army on the Kherson front line reached unbearable levels, the Russian leader was forced to appoint Teplinsky as the commander of the Russian troops in the region. At the time, many experts made remarkable claims about this issue. Among these allegations was Teplinsky's failure and Putin's liquidation of him in this way. At the moment, we cannot say that Teplinsky has failed completely. Of course, he could not prevent Russian casualties. However, although Teplinsky was loved by the Russian troops, his orders began to disobey. Allegedly, there is a crisis among the troops of the Russian army in the region. The architect of this crisis is, of course, Russian leader Vladimir Putin. As we mentioned, the tension between Teplinsky and Putin is causing problems. According to the allegations, there is currently a disconnect between the Russian troops and the Kherson front line. In fact, this situation is not much related to the main command level because, again, according to the information we have obtained from Russian sources, Teplinsky is in harmony with his own team. However, the soldiers and commanders at lower levels do not listen to General Teplinsky's order. Moreover, Teplinsky's orders are reported to all soldiers in the wrong way. According to the claims of Russian sources, it is Vladimir Putin, the president of the Russian Federation, who's planned this situation. Russian sources are very angry against these moves of Putin. According to the sources, Putin has lost the ability to separate his personal ambitions from the war. Russian sources who claim that the problems between Teplinsky and Putin is reflected on the front line claims that the failure to resolve this situation will lead to a dissolution of the Russian troops. The sources even explains how this situation is reflected on the front line with an example. According to the Russian sources, a detachment recently received an order for a point attack. The point where the attack would take place was known to be under the control of the Ukrainian army. When the platoon went to the area, they saw there were Russian troops there. Russian troops informed them that they had come to the wrong area. The detachment then contacted the main headquarters. The headquarters directed this platoon to capture another point. However, there were Russian troops at this point as well. So the detachment made a long excursion in the area. Nobody, including the Russian headquarters, knew what it was doing or trying to do on the front line. Russian sources interpret this as a great lack of seriousness. Allegedly, information about the seizure of these positions was not reported to the main headquarters by the troops in the area. In fact, this is a blatant rebellion. However, Russian sources are still trying to portray the big problem as only minor inconveniences. But the situation is clear. There is a conspiracy against Teplinsky in the lower echelons of the Russian armies and Putin's orders. We believe that this problem experienced by the Russian troops on the Kherson front line will only grow because the chain of the command seems to have suffered great damage here. Previously, a Russian general named Makarevich was in charge here. At the time, Russian sources complained about the breakdown of the chains of command and thought that Teplinsky would repair this breakdown. However, it seems that the problem here is not only related to the command staff. Russian sources even claim that the problems experienced in the troops in the region resemble a ladder and the problems are ascending from the bottom upwards. As we have stated, common sense and joint actions are very valuable for armies. However, the lack of discipline in the Russian army prevents this valuable thing from occurring. There is an offensive of the Ukrainian army on the Kherson front line. We often analyze this in our map reports. Under these circumstances, the problem of the indiscipline in the Russian army will lead to more Russian casualties. But let's look at it from this point of view. Who benefits from these losses? Of course, Putin, who has problems with Teplinsky, the commander of the Russian troops in the region. Putin can liquidate the Teplinskys in this way. As we have already mentioned, Russian sources think that the problems are created by Putin. While these events were taking place on the front line, a remarkable assassination took place behind the front line recently. According to reports, a senior Russian helicopter pilot, codenamed Bess, was assassinated. The assassination took place in Voronezh, one of the cities of the Russian Federation. According to the allegations, the Russian helicopter pilot was shot by unidentified persons while waiting for the bus stop recently. Exactly 7 bullets hit the pilot. The injured pilot was hospitalized but could not be saved despite all the interventions. Although Russian official sources tried to hide this incident, unofficial sources confirmed this news. The helicopter pilot, codenamed Beth, had taken part in many airstrikes on Ukraine. At the same time, the pilot was also teaching military students studying at military aviation schools. In other words, it can be said that there has been a great loss for Russia. Their investigations is still ongoing. However, the assassination was allegedly carried out by the Ukrainian saboteurs. This assassination also shows that the Russian security forces have failed to ensure public order and security within the country. So, what do you think? Do you think Teplinsky will be able to recover the Russian army? Could it be Putin's operations that Teplinsky's orders are not listened to? How will the situation of the Russian troops in the region affect the Kherson front line? What do you think about the assassinations of the Russian pilot? Let me know in the comments. I read and care about all your comments.